Well, I have been informed to lead the boys astray, so I might do that for the next hour. Thanks, gentlemen. Let's see where we go with this. So, Matty and Brandy, thank you guys so much for giving up your time. We've obviously had the pleasure to cross paths multiple times over the last couple of years, and I've also had the privilege to watch you guys do what you do for a living, which is, one of the best things as someone who sits in the crowd to now be able to sit down and have a more intimate conversation with you. And I think it's something that I know it's going to be something that a lot of our listeners, because we have so many, music fans that listen to this podcast as well, to sort of get an inside scoop of what goes through the minds of Brandy and Matt and how it all came to be. So thank you guys for joining me first and foremost.
Not much goes through your mind most of the time, buddy.
I'm glad we've got more. We've got more in common than I first thought. Before we dive into where you guys are now and the song you guys have produced together and written together, I'd love to sort of hear from both of you around how the music career came to be, what the younger life was like. And I know obviously that could be a long-winded story, so we'll get a quick summary and the little condensed version, the highlights version. But Matty, if you want to kick off, mate.
Mate, for me, I grew up in a show business household. Mum and dad were singers. My dad still is in the business. And so I was exposed to music from a very young age. Literally my earliest memories of childhood were revolved around music. Mum and dad were either rehearsing material songs in the house or performing. And I used to go to their shows as a kid. I'd be side of stage. I'd be in the bio box up where the lighting is. I'd go on cruise ships and watch them perform and all that sort of stuff. So it was very normal for me to take this path. In fact, I never really had any other plans than to do music. I'd never had a plan B. Even now, I've never had a plan B. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but it was very normal, mate. So when I was to take this vocation in life, no one was surprised that knew me. And yeah, it's kind of weird as you get older, you sort of look back on things a little different, but it's just amazing how influenced we are by our parents. Quite often, even things like, sporting teams and things like that, quite often guys will support their dad's team and that kind of thing. But I was heavily influenced by my mum and dad, but they never pushed me into music. They never said, this is what you need to do. I was the one that was hassling them to get lessons, to be learning music and that kind of thing. So yeah, mate, that's how I got into music, and here I am all these years later, heavily embedded and invested in this business.
Mate, I love it. And I did read you were learning from like the age of 4 or something insane. And yeah, just a side note, did your dad influence you to be a Rabbitohs supporter? Because you're a Rabbitohs supporter, aren't you?
Mate, tattoo and all, mate. South Sydney till I die. There's a bit of a backstory. My dad was lead singer of the Deltones, and in 1967, they were commissioned to sing the famous Glory, Glory to South Sydney theme song. But my dad was a Rabbitoh way before that. He was born and bred in Woolloomooloo in Sydney. And back then, if you were from, lived in the city and whatnot, the Rabbitohs would have been your team. So my dad was red and green since before I came into the world. And then when I was born, my mum's side of the family, they were all North Sydney Bears supporters, and dad and his side of the family were Rabbitohs. But we followed my dad, and there was good, healthy rivalry within the family.
Mate, good old rugby league. There's something about the Rabbitohs supporters. You're literally the most diehard. You're like Collingwood in the AFL.
Well, but, and we can have this chat about it today. One thing about sport that I love is the tribalism.
Oh, yeah.
It's the banter with your mates when you're playing your friend's team, but also the camaraderie. One thing I miss about living in Queensland, I moved up here in 2018 from Sydney, but I used to live really close to Homebush. And so I used to go to the home games all the time. I was a diamond member with South Sydney, and just going to the games, win or lose, when you'd meet up with the borough and all the diehards, there's something comforting when you're all in donning the colours, and there's a power to it. You feel like strength in numbers and all that sort of stuff, but it's tribalism, and I've always loved that.
I love that. Thanks, Matty. So Brandy, mate, how'd you sort of give us a bit of your backstory?
Similar age as Matty. from a very young age, I was going to see my dad and my uncle's band. And so I had an uncle who, my dad who was a lead singer, uncle who was a drummer, uncle who was a bass player, and an uncle who was the dodgy manager. He's still dodgy too, brother. But from the very young age, you know, I would be going to gigs and I'd get up on stage with dad and the uncles and sing How Much Is the Doggy in the Window, 10 Guitars, Funny Face, I Love You, and standing on a chair and a microphone. And so for me as well, it was very much in the blood. I then gravitated towards the drums. I thought my Uncle Sam was the coolest, you know, and he used to play Run and Bear on the drums. Run and Bear, I just watched him and be mesmerized. So I gravitated towards the drums. And then, you know, I was playing in church bands from the age of 6 and 7 years old. And then, yeah, it just sort of progressed. I started playing drums in garage bands, and then we couldn't find a singer. And he couldn't shut me up at the drums, so we found another drummer. So I then started to sing, and it just graduated into this thing where I just loved it and wanted to be on stage. You couldn't shut me up, you know. I was never one of those people who was a studio junkie. I was never a person who would practice as I should. I just wanted to be out front, laughing, having a good time, winging it. And to this day, mate, nothing's changed. I'm still winging it.
Wow, I love it. But for both you, and I guess separate answers here, but Matty, you said you never had a plan B with music. What, I guess, was that moment, or was there a moment for you where you knew it was going to be the career for the rest of your life, where you knew, because, you know, there are people who don't have plan Bs and sometimes it doesn't work out for them. For you, you've made it work and you've killed it. So was there like a defining moment for you where you're like, this is going to be my life?
I don't think it was a defining moment. I think it was just something that happened over time. I started playing professionally at 16. They used to have to sneak me in the back of the doors in the pubs and all that sort of thing. And I think from a young age, it's what I always wanted to do. And I think when you're deeply embedded in it, you don't sort of stop to ponder what you're doing. I was just doing it. But as I got older and I started to get some profile gigs and touring overseas and that kind of thing, I definitely, it just confirmed that I made the right choice. But I never had that moment where it was like a light bulb moment, like, oh, here I am, I've arrived and this is what I need to do. Again, I think similar to, if you want to use sport as an analogy, if you see, you know, quite often an NRL, for instance, that, you know, you'll see a famous dad and the son ends up being an NRL player. It's not like you sort of, I think sometimes the vocation chooses you. And that was for me. I was just doing it. I never sort of stopped to question it or think, you know, that I've made it or anything like that. It's just something that, like, deep within me, I had to do it. Even now, mate, like especially the last couple of years, it's been, you know, the music industry's been through hell and back. But as much as I've always had little side hustles and things like that, but music has always been at the forefront, and I've never really questioned it, mate.
That's awesome. I find it really inspiring, especially, you know, I look at Amy, and I grew up as a footy jock, so we used to pick on, you know, musos, which I'm not proud of, but that's the way the cookie crumbled. And one thing I admire about the creatives and even watching Amy is, like, she's, you know, you guys went through hell throughout COVID, etc., but you've probably copped stuff all throughout your life. And the fact that you stay so focused, and let's bring it back to sport, like sport in Australia is next level. Like, you talk about tribalism and community and support. It's like, it gets everything, like funding, it's on TV everywhere. It's easy to want to be successful there, but wanting to be successful in a different, you know, in the creative space, it is a lot more challenging because, you know, I remember I started the drums. I did drums for maybe 6 months and I got called a nerd and picked on. So I was like, nah, not for me. I'm going back to rugby. That's the safe place for me.
If I can just touch on one thing, it's funny, as a kid, when someone would say to me, what does your dad do? And I'd say, he's a singer. And they go, no, what does he do for a job? And I've never forgotten that. And that used to happen all the time. And throughout my lifetime, the amount of times when someone says, "Oh, what do you do for a living?" I go, "I'm a muso," or I'm a country music artist. And they go, "No, but what's your day job?" It's
Yeah.
funny, but what you talk about, I think in Australia, because it's such a sport, is such a big part of our culture, we tend to put, our sports stars on pedestals, and sometimes they don't deserve to be there because of what happens, their behaviour and whatnot.
Yep.
But I think sport, just the way Australia is, it is a huge part of our culture. Whereas I do think sometimes the arts take a bit of a backseat, but that's just how it is.
Yeah, and I do believe it's changing, or maybe because I'm more in the music scene than I am the sports scene now, but just I tend to, the conversations that I had, and I've had good chats with you gents as well, is a lot more in depth than superficial stuff. Like even in the sports space, it's like, "Oh, what about the footy score? You're putting a punt on here," or whatever it may be, and that's sort of it. But with, I connected really well with you guys and a lot of people in the music space, because I think you are more open to discussing what's really going on in your life, or you are genuinely interested in what's going on in someone else's life, not just sort of standing next to each other holding a beer going, "How good's the weather?" And I think more people are craving that as well, which is why I'm excited that more and more people are getting to hear what you guys are up to. And also it's sort of trickling into sport now with Nicho Hynes talking more about his mental health and ambitions after the game and stuff like that, not just trying to be this macho, stereotypical tough guy. But
I think, mate, I think with the creative or arts, as you say, especially with what we do in country music, you're really wearing your heart on your sleeve a lot. You're delving into your own personal experiences, your own personal feelings. You're bringing them out. You're writing about them. You're putting it to a tune, recording it, and then putting it out to the public. So in effect, you're really sharing with everybody, or whoever is interested and whoever wants to have a listen. You're saying, "This is a part of me. This is how I feel about this." And so, in essence, you're kind of on show in a way. So it makes sense that there's a lot more conversations going on with what we do, and especially in country. Country has always had the I suppose the title of talking and singing about things that are real, things that mean something, things that you're emotionally invested in. So we tend to talk a lot, us in the band, and as you say, it's not good game, have a beer and blah blah blah. I mean, there is an element of that. I won't, especially with Matt in the band. But there's a lot of talking, we're always checking in on each other, and I think it's inherent of what we do and how we do it.
You touch on a good point there, Brandy, where it's something that you guys have done because it's something you've developed or it's part of your career, but you have practiced the form of expressing what's going on in your life. And I think for anyone listening, that is something we can develop, because for myself, coming from I used to play professional rugby, and I was a typical footy bloke who was up to no good, and I didn't know how to communicate what I was experiencing. So I would find other means to sort of distract myself, whether it was alcohol or women. And we see, Matt, you mentioned before, there's definitely a lot of sporting people who are on a pedestal when they maybe haven't earned, in my opinion, earned the right to have that much, I guess, influence with their behaviors and how they're showing up. So then to know that it is something that you can develop, you guys are leading the charge with that, with how you do share vulnerably what's going on in your life. And even with the song, Our Church, it starts with you, Maddie, asking for help, which when I watched that, I was like, man, that's how my whole business started. And you guys have summarized the last 7 years of my career in one song, which was pretty cool to watch. But for you both as well, I guess you've always been a part of music, but when you wrote that song, and more particular, obviously it's delving into asking for help and having that good, like that brotherhood around you. What was it like releasing that? And did you find it challenging to really open up about your mental health there?
Mate, can I say, when the song was written, the guys I wrote it with, it was a guy called Link Phelps who suggested we should write a song about a brotherhood. And then I told the guys about church, about this weekly thing that we did. So I wasn't consciously writing a song about mental health. We were just in the zone writing a song about this thing. And as we were writing, I knew there was something about the song that was going to be special. Sometimes you can just sort of feel when you're writing something that it's going to have something special about it. But it was never like, let's write a song about mental health. We were just expressing ourselves. And when I sent Adam the song after it was written, Adam rang me straight away and he said, we have to release this song because the song was about us, about our journey, sort of the last couple of years. But it's just funny how it's gone this particular way and the mental health thing has been brought up. And for me personally, and again, it could come back to what you're talking about before about maybe in the arts we're a little bit more vulnerable and we can open up. But I've always been very open about, if I've been struggling and whatnot, I definitely will reach out to friends. But I haven't shone away the last couple of years in when I'm doing, radio interviews and stuff. When I'm talking to people, I have not tried to hide the fact or mask that I was doing okay, because I wasn't. And for me, it's probably just who I am anyway. I think for a guy, I've always been pretty open and wear my heart on my sleeve and that kind of thing. But for me, I find comfort in actually being open, and I think when you've got good people around you, Adam and I are really close friends, and Adam's a really honest person as well. So I think in the past, if I open up or say anything, I can guarantee and I count on Adam to be really honest, to the point where if he thinks, I'm not taking the right path or I should be doing this, he'll say that to me, and I'd say the same thing to him. And I like that when you have that relationship with friends where there's no bullshit. It's like, just be honest, just say what's on your mind, say how you're feeling. And for whatever reason, the way, evolution and the way things have happened with men, once upon a time, that whole macho stigma, which is still very much there, but I do feel like the paradigm is shifting, that men are starting to talk more, they're starting to open up more. And you mentioned Nicho Hynes. I think sometimes it takes people in the public eye to say it's okay. If you're struggling, it's okay. Say what's in your mind and let people know what's going on, because we know worst case scenario what happens when, both men and women, when they feel like they've got no other answer. You can see the suicide rates, especially in the last couple of years. So, I think it takes more strength sometimes to speak up than to keep it in.
Matty, mate, I think you touched on something there too, is that as you and I, our relationship is we're open. We can talk about anything. But the reason why we can talk about anything is because we know we're not going to get the door slammed in our face. I know if I say something to Matty, I say, mate, geez, I'm struggling with this. He's not going to ridicule me for it, or he's not going to go, you're an idiot. And maybe as men, we're guilty a bit of that in the past, making fun of your mate if he shows a bit of weakness, if he shows a bit of vulnerability. It's just like, okay, there's something loose, we'll pick at that. Again, it's part of our culture as guys, and especially Aussie males, to have a go at each other and rib each other. But I think when you feel safe, when you feel like your mate who you're going to open up to will take it the right way and will support you through it, we will open up more. And I think that's what's beginning to happen. We're starting to feel like it's okay.
It's a very good point about having the door slammed in your face. We even find it one of the challenges in relationships, as well as a lot of women generally want their partners or husbands or whatever to open up. And the moment that we do, they're just like, fuck, I don't know how to deal with this. Please don't do that again. And that's, another one of those reasons where it sort of gets slammed in your face. So I guess having that awareness that Are You Okay Day is a great example. We do, promote it once a year, but a relationship or a mateship, as you guys touched on, is like you guys are chatting all the time. You're doing those little daily deposits on the mateship, and sometimes it's a serious chat. Other times you might be just having a bit of banter, but that your mate's always showing up for yourself, or you can rely on them and depend on them when they're there, not just one day a year when we've been told to ask, are you okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The more you do it, the easier it gets too.
Definitely. And so, Matty, you joined Brandy's band 10 years ago?
14.
14?
Oh,
Yeah. You
Bloody
get less
hell.
for murder, mate.
there's only 12.
Yeah,
So
no,
how-
it was 14 years. And the funny thing is, without digressing, the very first gig I did with Adam, very first show, I was getting dressed in my hotel room, putting on my t-shirt when I got out of the shower, and I put my hand through the shirt and accidentally put my hand in a ceiling fan, and ended up having to like tape it up, do the show, and then get stitches after the show. But the reason I'm bringing it up, a good mate of ours who I met through Adam is rock doc, Dr. Brad, and just recently he sent it to me a couple of times now. He goes, mate, this thing still pops up. He's got the admission slip from the hospital, and it was the exact night, the exact date, so I can trace it back to the exact date when I first started playing with Adam. From memory, I think it was October 2009 or whatever. But yeah, it's been a long time.
That was the day that I knew that he was going to be around a long time, because I was on stage and I looked across and he's standing over there grimacing, playing the bass, blood dripping from his fingers onto the floor. And I looked at him and I went, yeah, he's prepared to bleed for me.
he's on.
What a start to a long-lasting friendship.
Mate, that is unbelievable, putting your hand through the bloody ceiling fan.
Crazy.
Commitment. What's it been like touring together for the last 14 years? Like, you'd obviously have some highs, have some lows throughout that. But as I guess we can say as brothers, what have been some of the special moments that you guys have created together?
Well, if I can go first, just that first part of your question, when I first met Adam, and just like any kind of business transaction, when I've been asked to work with whoever, sometimes it might be 5 shows, it could be 2 shows or whatever. So when I first got the call to do a tour with Adam, I was still working with another band. I was with a rock band at the time, and so I just thought it was going to be a tour. You don't know how it's going to go, but over time, our relationship, we became closer and became mates. And one thing about, similar to, again, like sport, when you're touring in a band, you spend a lot of time in vans, hours, in fact, in green rooms, in airports. And so being on stage, that's only a very small part of the relationship. So much more of it is when it's the traveling and whatnot. And as time went on, and Adam and I got closer and closer, I sort of left the rock world that I was in, and Adam suggested I sort of do country. But in terms of highs and lows and that kind of thing, one thing I can openly say, Adam and I have seen each other at our best and our worst. We've been there for each other when there's been heartbreak, when there's been loss, when there's been stuff on our minds or whatever. We've literally seen each other when we've been at rock bottom, on top of the world, and I think that's in some way it's solidified our friendship, because no matter what, we've always just been there for each other, and it's something I think when you get older, you don't take things for granted. As I get older, my friends, my inner circle, I love my inner circle, and I'm so thankful. That old saying, I can still remember when I was a little kid, my nan said to me, if you can count 5 really good friends on one hand, you're doing well. And I was like, Nan, I've got 30 friends. And she said, no, when you get older, you'll understand when you've got those people that if you call them at 3 a.m. and say, mate, I need you, they're getting in the car and they're coming to get you. Those sort of friends that will do anything for you. And so Adam and I, we've had a unique friendship. Yeah, the business side of things, yeah, sure, we've played on stage in front of big crowds and all that stuff that people can look from the outside and go, that's really cool. But it's the times I've spent with Adam in vans, and usually I'm the driver when we're on the road, so it's usually him and I in the front, and the amount of conversations that we've had about everything, that's been the highlight of my time with Adam.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. One of the biggest things for me if you marry up our friendship and the touring, the 14 years of touring, is watching Matty start his country music career and then progress as a songwriter, as a performer, and then start opening the shows, and then you know, doing his own shows, recording his own music, going off and doing other projects and stuff up until this point where we've released this song together. And so for me, it's, I don't know what the right word is, but proud of him as a mate, and just I watch him now on stage doing his own thing, playing in front of these crowds with his band, and just go, yeah, that's my buddy up there. That's my mate. I remember when he first joined us, and you know, and he said, oh, maybe, you know, I wouldn't mind writing a country song or something. And it's like this, just a little thought. And now here he is, you know, especially at Tamworth. I think I had this beautiful moment, you know, I was standing side of stage, watching him just slay it on stage to, you know, 7,000 or 8,000 people out there in the park. And it's like, that's my bro out there. Yeah. You know, so yeah, it's things like that, which to me really resonate, really swell inside my heart. And as Matty said, there's plenty of great shows and exciting this and exciting that, but it's those things which really matter the most.
It's cool to hear that perspective, because I've stood by both of you at the side of the stage, because Brandy, you've been, or both of you, welcoming Amy into the country music community, and you've invited her to play shows with you. And, you know, I still remember, I think it was not the most recent one, the last October or whenever that last Tamworth was. And when Amy and you, I've got this footage of you and Amy singing together, and she's like, I can't believe I just sang with Brandy. And I was like, I can't fucking believe you sang with Brandy either. And this is one of the greatest clips I've got on my phone now. But cool. You definitely help. You make people feel comfortable, and you also make people feel valued and heard. And I think that's really something special, especially, you know, you guys are obviously both in the spotlight, and there would be thousands, if not tens of thousands of people looking up to you guys, but you still treat, from my interactions with you guys and watching how you guys treat everyone, make everyone feel like they're on the same, you know, same playing field as you guys. And I think that's really unique and rare. And I think it's something that I'd love people to recognize that about you both. And obviously, Matty, we were chatting at Tamworth this year when Brandy was playing, and even when Amy was up there, and just having a good laugh. But to hear now what it means to both of you to watch each other play as well, not only just playing together, but get to stand there and have this 14+ year relationship and see your brother doing your thing is pretty special.
Well, you know what, we have spent so much time on stage, and there's, especially this band that we've got at the moment, we've all been together for some time, and there's a chemistry and a bond that you have within a band. It's almost like just by looking at each other on stage, you're connecting, and you're saying things just by looks, and it's very much like that with this band. But just to get back to what you're talking about, Adam, just to, you know, Adam won't like me talking about this, but Adam has mentored a lot of artists, and it's in his DNA to help people and mentor and sometimes, you know, give constructive criticism. He doesn't hold back with that either, which I love about him. But he's got a history of taking so many people out on their first tour, or getting someone their record deal or whatever. So he's always been that way. And let me tell you, mate, it's rare. I've been around a lot of other artists that they're the opposite of that. They don't want to give, they don't want to help you, they just want to keep what's theirs and keep working on their own thing. But you know, and I was one of many that Adam sort of said, if you want some help, I'm going to get behind you and put you in front of my audience. So, and you know, and I love doing that now myself. You know, if there's a young artist that wants mentoring or just wants to write with me or whatever, I'll never say no. And because the industry it's so tough. I jokingly, when parents come up to me at shows and go, look, my son or daughter's thinking about getting into the music business, do you have any advice? And I say, yeah, tell them don't, you know, because mate, it's not for everybody. Yeah. It's not. And it's not just about talent. That's only a small portion of it. Like for some that may have a bit of talent, they just may not have the drive or the thick skin or whatever it takes to be in the music business. And certainly financially, it's it is a roller coaster. It is one of the hardest industries, you know, to make a living and something that is ongoing because it's so cyclical and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's a tough business. So Adam has always been that guy for a lot of artists that will, you know, help them and answer questions if they want to ask him whatever. He's an open book, and that's just one of the many things I love about him.
I actually feel really blessed, mate, with my life, you know, and I feel almost in some points ago, how did this happen to me? You know, I'm not actually that good. Why is this happening? You know? So, and a part of me, I just love helping people. I love seeing other people do well, and I've always felt that you don't get more if you scoop everything into your corner and hold it like this. I feel that you get more if you have your arms open and let it out. This happened very early on in my career for me. And I mean, it was quite a mind shift for me. I'd been out on tour, just a couple, not many shows, but a few shows with some bigger artists, and things happened to me. And they were things like, you're only allowed to have one acoustic. You only have a white light on you. You can't be too loud. You can't do this. You kind of restrictions put on you, you know. And I always thought to myself at those early days, I thought, if I ever get big enough, I'm never going to do that to someone else. I'm going to make sure that they can do what they want. You want to use a band, use the band. You have all the lights, make them loud, do whatever you want to do. And I think it sort of stemmed from that. I genuinely love watching other artists explode and go into this incredible phase where things are happening for them. They're realizing their dreams, because I remember how that felt for me. It was such a euphoric sort of feeling. And so I love watching that happen, you know, in other people.
It's interesting, that point that you raised there, where a lot of acts don't want the the support act to, it's perceived that they'll outperform them or whatever. But whenever I go to a show, I'm like, I love it when all the acts can do what they want, because it's just like turned into a mini festival. It's bloody unreal. And everyone has their own way of doing things, but it just gets you more and more hyped. I went to the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and Post Malone, which was completely random, was his support act, but they let him do whatever he wanted. And by the time the Chili Peppers were on, you're like, how good was that? I feel like I'm legitimately at a festival, and I've seen two incredible, and I didn't even like Post Malone, but now I do, just because I've seen him perform. So I think it's for an artist who's comfortable enough to go, hey, whoever's opening for me, let go full tilt. Let's do it.
The better the opening act, it just strengthens the overall show. But not only that, I think it keeps you on your toes. If you get an opening act that goes out there and slays it, like it's great for the overall show. But you know, you've got to be in your A game as well. You've got to go out there and lift your game. You know, I think, and that was Adam's. His ethos has always been like, the stronger the overall show is, it just adds value. Like the fans are there to watch the show. If the support act's killing it and the whole night is strong and the show's strong, it's a good thing.
Brings it, or raises another good question. How have you guys, both individually and collectively, continued to raise the bar for yourselves? Because obviously, as you said, it's a tough industry. There's always new artists coming through. You've got to maintain your audience and continue growing it. What sort of things have you done to, stay at the top of your game for so long?
I don't think I am at the top of the game, actually.
Mate, I would say you are.
No, I certainly don't think so. But for me, what I like to do is surround myself with amazing, talented people. I've got the best singers in my band. In my band, I've got six singers, 6 people who sing in my band, and there's 6 people in the band, including me. I'm the worst singer in the band. So surround yourself with incredible people, right? So for me, just to stay, because I mean, there's so many incredible acts coming through now. I mean, you know, you got people like Amy, you got people like James Johnson, you've got Casey Barnes, Brad Cox, all these incredible acts, and they're popping. You know, they're doing all this new stuff, and I'm in this old relic from the, you know, from 20 years ago. You know, trying to, okay, you know, surround yourself with great people. I've still got something to say. I still love being in front of people, singing my songs and sharing what I've got. But certainly surround yourself with incredible people. And I would say that's a rule for life in general. Surround yourself with great people, no matter what you're doing, no matter if it's just at work, if it's at home, if it's friends. You know, you look at someone successful and then look at their friends and they'll tell you why they're successful. I surround myself with amazing human beings, and it blesses me, and it keeps me motivated, inspired, and being able to do what we do.
I've got a different journey to Adam's. Adam's way more established than me. My country journey started a lot later, so I feel like I'm still establishing myself to a degree. So I this year in particular, I had a bit of a hiatus doing a side project, but I'm just trying to get my solo career back on track. And for me, again, I think just being around the band and the people we work with that are at the top of their game, it just makes you lift. And so for me, I'm just trying to be the best writer I can be, the best performer I can be. And yeah, it's for me, it's that slow build. Some people are overnight successes. You know, I've been in the business over 30 years, so I feel like mine's been a very slow increase, but that's been my journey. But I still like to push myself, and I'm just trying to write the best songs I can write. And especially after the last 2 years with COVID, I'm just trying to get back out there again and try and do as many, you know, solo shows and festivals as I can do. And along the way, I'm still playing in Adam's band and still touring and doing the big festivals with Adam, which is, you know, I love being able to do both. I love being able to still play in Adam's band and then still go off and go to a festival on my own. But yeah, it's for me, I just feel like my journey is still very much ongoing. I'm still trying to get myself out there as an artist, and to some degree, Lockie, I still get, there's a stigma with me where someone might, you know, introduce me as, you know, this is Matt, he used to be with the Baby Animals. It's like, yeah, I did, but I'm an artist, so I'm still trying to get the perception, people to take me seriously to some degree. So yeah, it's been an interesting journey.
Is there anything either of you would do differently if you had your time again so far in the careers?
Yes and no. Because you can always go back and go, oh, I wish I had made a better decision. Wish I had taken a different direction there. But I'm a firm believer of where we're supposed to be. That if I hadn't have made those wrong decisions or not so great decisions, that I wouldn't be here where I am now. And I believe where I am right now is where I am meant to be. So it's difficult. It's a difficult question, you know, to answer. But so ultimately the correct answer is no. I'm a product of my mistakes, and they're my greatest lessons.
Yeah, I'm with Adam there. It's what you just said too, Adam. You know, I'm where I'm meant to be. And again, we've watched each other's journeys over the years, and I look at your life and your partner and your girls and everything. You know, you're where you're meant to be. I can tell you that. I know that deep within my being, that's where you're meant to be. And for me, you know, I've made a lot of mistakes, and you know, with that so many years living that life of a, you know, touring musician, you know, drinking too much and doing all that sort of stuff that you probably shouldn't do. Do I regret it? Probably not. I've got some great stories about that stuff that I could talk about off air, Lockie.
Yes.
But you know, I'm where I need to be right now. You know, I'm at an age where you know, I'm no spring chicken. I've been in the business a long time, but I'm happy with where my career is at. You know, has it been hard? Bloody oath, and it's still hard. It's still challenging. But for me, I've always in an industry that's really tough. Again, maybe it's because my parents were in it. I just never had that mindset of, if this doesn't work, I'm going to do this. It's like, I'm in this for life. I'm doing this forever. My dad is 80 this year, and he's thinking about doing another record. And he told me recently, I'm thinking about doing another record, mate. I said, you said that about your last one 5 years ago. He goes, I just feel like I've got another record in me. He's 80, you know, so, well, soon to be 80. So, you know, the beautiful thing, I guess, about our industry, unlike, say, sport, for instance, you know, you can do it for, you know, if you look after yourself, you can do it for, you know, a decent amount of time. So, yeah, I'm where I need to be too, mate.
That's awesome. We've got a surprise guest on the show.
So this is Pepper. I heard a knock at the door. It's
Pepper!
a freshly baked cupcake.
How are you, Pepper?
Yeah.
Good.
Might have to send one of those cupcakes over here.
Yes, please.
And he's talking to his friends. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's for you, Daddy.
Thank you, darling. All right. You want to go see Mummy? Okay. Bye.
That's awesome.
No cupcakes here.
No.
I got nothing.
Sorry, guys.
Adam, how's it been for you, Adam? Obviously, touring and stuff, like managing that work-life battle for both of you. Like, I guess when I say work-life, but like home life with traveling and touring and stuff like that.
Before Pepper came along, and she's my first. So I've got two, Pepper and Connie. Connie's now 8 months.
Yep.
Before Pepper, we would tour very heavily. You know, probably 8, 9, 10 shows a month, kind of thing. But because we do, you know, we go out on weekends, do three or four shows on a weekend, and then so you'd be for 4 or 5 days. We do that 2-3 times a month. Since Pepper's arrived, we haven't done it once, and it's a little bit probably frustrating on the manager's side of things. You can't really get me out of home, but I figure I started late. Pepper came along, I was 49 years old. I'm 53 now, so I've got 2 kids. I've got a little 8-month-old, and
8-month-old.
Yeah, 8-month-old, 8-month-old little baby girl who's my daughter, and a lot of my mates have got grandkids same age, you know. So I did start late. For me, it was perfect timing. Now I've got the time, I've got the patience to spend the time, and I don't want to miss it. I don't want to miss any of these times. So they know that I'll only go away for one night at a time now, which means those big tours kind of over, and we'll just do festivals, one nights here and there and things like that. But for me now, my life, my direction, my focus, my priorities, the first thing on the ladder, the first thing I get up thinking about in the morning used to be music, tour. Okay, what am I going to do today? What's good? You know, what strategy? What new idea can I think of? Now that's like 6 or 7 or 8, maybe more. Now it's about my girls. We live in a little farm, you know, when I say farm, it's only 7 acres, but we've got chickens and veggies and fruit trees and tractors and things. And it's for me, this is my life now. I still love music. I still love getting together with my brothers and going and doing a show, but it has its place. So when you say, how do I find the balance? I think I've got the balance. For me personally, my balance is perfect because 95% of my time is at home with my family.
That's awesome. That's so cool to hear. I always find it really interesting to see how people juggle it. It's one thing Amy and I get nervous about is like if we have a family, like, you know, she's gone away now. I think she's gone to Winton or somewhere. I'm not actually sure. And then she goes to Melbourne with Shepherd, and she's constantly going everywhere. And I can't always travel because I got my own stuff going on. So we get nervous about that. But Matty, what about for you? Like, how do you juggle work-life balance?
I was going to say, don't get nervous about it, mate, because you'll just make it work. I've worked with that many artists over the years that have multiple children and businesses and that. You just make it work. For me, I've got a partner in my life now, and but I don't have a family. I don't have any kids yet, but I really hope to start a family one day. So for me, it's a lot easier to jump on a plane than it is for Adam. So yeah, I'm still, you know, open to touring and doing all that sort of stuff. So it's a lot easier. I think I live alone, And although I'm in a relationship, it's a lot easier for me to travel. But in saying that, you know, gone are the days where we used to do, you know, even the last big touring year with Adam, I think was 2018. Adam, I think, was the Milestone tour.
Yeah.
And we would have done, I don't know how many, maybe 50, 60 shows that year. But we used to do, you know, tours where you do 30 or 40 shows in a couple of months. I remember back when I used to work with Shannon Noel, I remember the first tour I ever did with Shannon, we did 43 gigs in 50 days around Australia. And at one point, we did 13 shows in a row over 3 states in the middle of that tour. And that was, you know, that's how you used to do it. You know, and I'd be away for 5 or 6 weeks or 3 or 4 weeks at a time. Do I want to do that kind of touring now? No, I don't want to do it like that. But for me to go 3 or 4 days a week and then be home from Monday to Wednesday or whatever, that suits me fine. So I don't have the obligations that Adam has with kids, but hopefully, you know, one day soon I hope to, you know, experience fatherhood.
That's exciting. Look at the grins on both of your faces. I love it. Proud as punch. Love it. Well, I won't take up too much more of your time, but I'd love to hear of any, I guess, upcoming projects. Obviously, you've got our church out, which I'll have all the links and stuff. We've already started posting it in our big Facebook community, which will be epic. But any upcoming songs, albums, I know you got headline shows, festivals. Where can everyone find you, catch you, listen to you?
Facebook.
Pretty much.
That's the easy answer, you know. Yeah. Facebook, Instagram is where all the stuff gets put out there, as you know, mate. But yeah, bunch of festivals. Maddie's probably got a bit more than I've got going on. Working on new songs, things like that. Definitely.
We both have a really cool festival coming up, if I can give them a shout out. Country on Keppel. It's the 3rd year. Think of a country music festival on a tropical island. That's coming up in July, and I'm also doing my 80s show one night, which will be a lot of fun. So that's something to look forward to. I actually got a gig in Fiji in August too, so
Fiji.
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, tunes in the tropics. So there's a bit on, but as Adam said, Facebook and Instagram, that's how you'll find out what we're up to.
That's awesome. And just one final one. Your song, Our Church, what do you hope people experience by listening to it? If you could leave something with that.
The song is about friends and brothers supporting each other, loving each other, if you like. When someone is in need, you rally the troops and you get around each other and you do whatever you need to do to get them through their difficult times. Being part of a church doesn't have to be a religious church. Whatever church you're a part of. Amy did a show with us in Tasmania last month, and we're in a tiny little town on the back of a truck with 1,000 odd people in the middle of this little street. And for that night, that was our church. Whether you're part of the racing community and all the race teams and all the families and everyone who know each other, because this is the sport they love. This is the community they love, their network. It's their church, where like-minded people get together. So when you ask what we hope that the song will do, we hope that it forms strong connections, strong relationships, that people will just support and love each other, be kind to each other, and be a part of a group that does that. Church.
Everything that Adam just said, I concur. But one thing for me, I mentioned before about the paradigm is shifting with men opening up, but I think traditionally men don't open up and the suicide rates are a lot higher in men. And I just hope moving forward that guys can start to open up more and just know that it's okay. It's okay if you're struggling to reach out to a mate, or if there's a lot of, support online now with Lifeline and, Black Dog Institute and Beyond Blue. There's help out there for people. So if you're struggling, don't keep it inside. Reach out to your friends, pick up the phone, call a hotline or whatever. So if our little song out there at the moment gets people talking about mental health or men's mental health or friendships or whatever, in some kind of way, if we've contributed to that in a good way, well, that makes me feel really good.
That's awesome. And I think you guys are definitely leading the way, especially obviously in the country music space. And I know you're in rock as well, Matty. But the country people need to hear it, especially the countrymen, the farmers. So by having people of influence like yourselves being comfortable to have these conversations, you're definitely going to slowly start having that ripple effect for men out there who need it, because it's definitely a issue that's going on. And you know, it's a beautiful song, and I'm very grateful to have had both of you on here for a chin wag, and I'm sure I will catch you both at a festival coming up or a show coming up, that's for sure.
Absolutely, mate. Thanks for having us, Lockie.
Lovely to speak to you, buddy. Can't wait to catch up with you backstage again and have a chat.
It would be great.